Hello. One of the most exciting effects that the composer violinists of the Baroque period developed over the course of the 17th and 18th centuries was that of the bariolage or string crossing patterns over two strings or three strings, sometimes four, often legato, at other times detached, or a combination of the two. And this makes mastering the art of string crossing absolutely fundamental for our studies of the Baroque violin. In this video, I'm going to take you step by step through the art of playing from one string to the adjacent string, the basics of string crossing. And the movements come from the wrist of the right hand. So I'm going to show you, first of all, the preliminary exercise. I've shown it on another video, but it's very good to do this on a regular basis. I'm going to clasp my right wrist a little high up, so it's not exactly the wrist, slightly the hand as well. And then with my right hand clasping quite firmly, I'm going to describe the most massive circle I possibly can, coming as high and as low and as much to the sides as I can. And I'm going to do that first of all clockwise, and then I'm changing to do it anti-clockwise. And you may experience a little bit of crackling sensation. This is nothing to worry about. It's actually really healthy. It's releasing the tensions within the wrist. And I could do that for a minute or so, and afterwards, oh, my wrist feels like it's just floating on air. There's no stiffness left within it at all. And I can then take this pen and enjoy the sensation of the free wrist, using the pen and holding it as I will the bow. The bow, of course, is rather more difficult to manipulate in that way, and therefore I'm going to take the bow and I'm going to steady it at the point with my left hand, and I'm going to make these gigantic circles with the wrist in both directions. Now, you may say, but I'm never going to have to play with such large, exaggerated movements. And if you say that, you'll be absolutely right. But I believe, as did my teachers, that when we learn a new physical movement, it's always better to exaggerate first. And then later we can tame the movement and mold it so that it serves absolutely our purpose. But we're going to start by exaggerating. Now, I'm going to hold the bow in this way so that I can only use the wrist. I can't involve the fingers at all. And I'm going to put the bow on the A string. Then I'm going to tilt the bow up to the D. Now it's on the D. And then I'm going to come back down to the E. Now I'm using only the wrist. I'm going to practice that for a while. And you will be observing that there is a problem here. And the problem is that the bow, the angle of the bow keeps changing. The amount of hair on it, it's doing that, isn't it? And that, of course, is unacceptable. So what's the solution? Well, the answer lies in the fingers. The springs of the fingers that we worked on in the previous video serve as a kind of suspension, so that when I move the wrist and the fingers together, I can keep the bow in this way absolutely vertically. I could touch a table and bring it up in a completely vertical way without any tilting at all. So it's the elongation of the fingers that acts as the suspension. Now I'm going to put the bow on the A again, and I'm going to bring it over to the D, tucking the fingers right up so that the knuckles are pretty much flat there. And then I'm going to put the bow down on the E string, elongating the fingers just enough so that the bow, and I'm looking at the bow to make sure that it's absolutely at the same angle throughout this experience. So if I play a note and then always I must seek to make the minimum amount of movement across the strings. So that is the D and that is the E. I don't need to go further than that. Now, in a previous video, we also learned to make horizontal movements of the wrist. And I'm going to do a few of those. Again, bow on the A, then tilt up to the D. A few horizontal movements. Stop. Down to the E. So I'm taking the time between the strings to make sure that that crossing is successful. And the rest of my body is in a completely neutral situation. The arm kind of flopping in a non-committal sort of way. And I can eventually eliminate the gap between until I'm playing. And of course, you hear the resonating A string. That's not to be worried about. Now, when I then seek to play on from just over 2 strings, so I'm going to put the bow on the 2 strings, and then I'm going to raise it slightly so that it's only, tilt it slightly so that it's only on the A, and now only on the E. And I'm looking to see how much movement do I actually need. And again, like I said, we want the minimum amount of movement now that is necessary for our task. So now I'm monitoring closely how much movement I actually need. And there we go. The body utterly neutral. The driver is the wrist, and the fingers are helping ever so slightly to keep the bow in the right angle. Now if I move towards the point a little bit, and I do the same thing, I'll need just a little bit more movement. And right down at the tip, I'll need the maximum amount of movement. But again, I'm keeping my eye on the bow. Now it's on the A, now it's on the E. It's still not very far. There we go. So the different parts of the bow, I can practice that, and there'll be a different amount of movement needed. It's not something I'm likely to use much at the frog, but I can still do it. Again, just seeing how close those 2 strings are. It's almost imperceptible movement across the strings. Most of the time, when we do this kind of thing, we'll be somewhere in the middle of the bow. Now, at this point, I'm going to introduce you to an absolute treasure trove of material for us Baroque violinists. This might surprise you, because the treasure trove is the works of Ševčík. Ševčík was a great pedagogue who lived at the latter part of the 19th and into the 20th century. And he provides us with the most complete spectrum of possible combinations of bowings and string crossings that we could ever hope to devise. So I make no apologies for using 20th century material for teaching the Baroque violin. And you will find in his Opus 2, in the third section, number 29, you will find the notes that he suggests for studying his exercises. And you'll probably want to memorize these, not difficult, or perhaps print them out and have them on a separate page. So the notes, first of all, are on the A and the E string. So I put the bow on the A and the E, and the notes are etc. And then when that section is over, he goes on to the D and the A string, and so I put my bow on the D and the A string. Etc. And finally over to the D and G string. Etc. And I'm going to practice the exercise I just showed you in this way. I'm going to take the movement of the wrist at the tip, and I'm going to practice quite slowly, metronome marking about 110. Etc. Now, I said in a previous video that when we're doing this kind of thing, having the two middle fingers right down on the frog of the bow is not a good idea. We need to bring them a little higher so that the bow is more easily manipulated and so that the sound will be better. So when I finished at the tip, I'll bring it up a little bit and I'll crank the metronome a little bit up. Keep my eyes on the bow to make sure it's using the minimum amount of movement. And then I'll go crank it up a little bit further until it's about something like 160, 65, something like that. Always making sure that my body's not tensing up. The only thing that's working is here and a little bit here. So, and I'll practice that at different parts of the bow. And then on the other strings. So that is, in a short video, the basics of string crossing over two strings. In future videos, we'll get more and more complicated patterns, but I want you to practice that as a basis for all the other movements that we're going to be investigating in future videos. So I hope you really enjoy your practicing.